I heard a quote somewhere that says, your past doesn't need you, your future does. And so I very rarely talk about what I do, what my background was. Charles has been one of the ones that's been pushing me to talk about what I did in my previous life. So this is a little bit about it, and because I art director and creative design, it's gonna look a little pretty. It's not a bullet point list. I was a creative director and was doing that freelance for 25 years, working with great companies here in town, doing those freelance directly with the companies, doing those also with the agencies, people like Wyden Kennedy, Cole & Weber, Borders, Perrin, Norander, Sandstrom Design. So I built a career really digging into brand and understanding how that translated in early stage startup. I got a little frustrated. If you've ever been in the room of some of those companies, there are people that are very, very removed from the process, and they will argue for hours about commas. They will talk about, one word or the point size and everything else, and they're trying to contribute and do a lot of value. And so it was really difficult for me towards the end. I was frustrated. I wanted to teach people about branding. I wanted to teach people about what I had been doing. And so I started doing some workshops. And those workshops were at a local co-working space. It's called Ned Space down in Portland. Mark Grimes was happy enough to say, we got entrepreneurs and people, just let's do it. It's like, okay. So I did, I think 3 workshops, probably about 200 people came in. About 75 to 80% of those were solo founders, early stage entrepreneurs. And it was a breath of fresh air. It was like sitting in a room and it was stifling heat, and somebody just opened up the window, and it was like, oh my God, this is amazing. People that were passionate about their projects, people that were connected to being able to actually act and do stuff. And what I realized is that was what I wanted to do. So I wanted to work with those people. I wanted to help them in meaningful ways to help them grow their business. And so that was kind of the growth. That was the birth of me putting in North Bank. That was 2017. Was when I built North Bank as kind of an entity, and it was doing a bunch of meetup groups, a lot like this, attending a lot of the startup community events that were New Tech PDX, New Relic. Pi was putting on a bunch of events, Pitch Black. There's a number of different great events that were going on, and I just started jumping in. I started running an event called 1 Million Cups, which was very similar to this format, just that was every week. And every week, I had a presenter come in. They'd give a 5-minute presentation, and then we'd do a big Q&A. It was run by the Kauffman Foundation. They had set up this national brand. We were the 35th city, and it blossomed out to over 120 cities. So it was a phenomenal program. I loved it. And one of the things that I found about this format was it was very, very different from a lot of the short pitch competition type of event, right? In startup, we kind of think you get your pitch, right? Your 5 minutes to tell us what you do, and then there's a 5-minute Q&A. And I always left those feeling there was something missing. I wasn't getting what I was really looking for. I wasn't finding out the answers that I was looking for. So, yeah, loved the event. Did that for 3 years, and then kind of just jumped a little bit out of it. COVID broke some of that, and as I was keeping the community going and those community connections, is when I reached out was finishing a project and reached out to Charles. We were just having lunch. And I said, I was finishing a project. I was CMO at a new startup that was out in Camas. And I said, I think this isn't going to work. I'm going to tell them I'm leaving, and I'll probably maybe go get a job. Charles said, show up Monday. And I ended up at Foremost, and it's been a great ride since. But that's a little bit about my background. We talk a lot about startups, and it's a very generic term. And I like to make the distinction between that and a lifestyle business, because there are some really, really different things that startups need that lifestyle don't. One of the main things, obviously fundraising, there's a lot of focus on that. That's basically because of their business model, because the upfront costs to develop those things are exorbitant, and there's going to be a long period of time before they can build something that they can get into the market. Scaling strategies is another one, right? Lifestyle businesses are dealing generally with local, smaller businesses where there are well-worn paths about what kind of work you need to do or people that you need to meet. Talk about market disruption. Lifestyle business generally doesn't try and change people's habits. They're filling a need that's already there. Exit planning, that this may be a temporary solution, right? This may be something that you're doing for a while and you're planning to be acquired. Few and far between are looking at IPOs, but it is certainly an option. But that becomes part of the calculus. Technology, you're developing new technology or infrastructure, and then product development, that you're making something new to fit the needs of the market, right? So those end up creating really, really different dynamics. And so you end up going through different stages, right? Where you're trying to take an idea that you have, the problem, you're putting together a solution, and then you're committing some time and energy to try and figure out, time, energy, and money to figure out what's going on and what you're trying to build. And then the big valley of death, validating, right? Getting out in the market, getting out in the world, and getting other people to understand what you've built, people that think and talk the same way you do. And that is often really, really hard, because if we're product focused, if we're engineered focused, we're focusing on this being good and right, and we kind of think that builds the market, and it doesn't. It's a very separate practice. And then once you get some traction, it's kind of adding fuel onto the fire to start scaling, and then ultimately to start establishing it as a real company. I get people all the time that say, I have this great idea, do you know an investor that I should talk to? And there's a disconnect. And what I find really often happens is that there's not people inside of the venture community, inside of the angel community, that are really talking enough about this, and they want to be polite. Portland has a very strong tendency to be very, very polite and not to tell you anything except you're too early, or it'll take 6 months to find out, and they won't tell you no. They'll just go. And so I think it's important to understand that different types of funding come in at different places in your business. And it's really not until you've started to commit time, energy, and this is where you would be building an MVP, is right in here. And that's going to start to prove it out. And it's not until some of that evidence starts to become really, starts gaining some traction, or there's enough evidence of traction, that angels are really going to start talking to you. So I just think it's an important part of the conversation. Angel funding certainly does go beyond scaling and establishing. I just didn't want all the things to go off the end. One of the things we do, North Bank has been doing events. And one of the main things it does is obviously connect. The other thing that we're doing is we're putting together programs. And those programs are teaching some of the architecture about how to build the business, right? This is talking about where you are and engineering a business, not just a product, right? And so this is, I think, really interesting. It's if you've seen, they're tools like the business model canvas that'll talk about breaking things out and building these different architectures. This is really a quick diagnosis tool and architecture that we've used to start breaking out team, product, your marketing, your operations, sales, and your finance, and really start connecting the dots and saying, let's do an early assessment where you are, let's talk about what you're getting, what you need to get done, and where you really need to be to advance through some of those stages. So anybody wants any information, happy to do this. There's a little bit about it up on our website. But my hope for North Bank is that it becomes this resource that becomes a solid path for entrepreneurs to find out early stage what they need and help either put resources in place, people and structures to help them move ahead. This is one of those. I've had about 17 requests for this slide because it is what we don't talk about, right? Is why do startups fail? There's been a lot of analysis about it, and incompetence is, we're all incompetent in some area. We just choose it, right? And the problem is we don't know what we don't know, and they can often be, huge blind spots. So part of the reason for, community and the venture community that help expand some of that. But The goal of North Bank is really to put resources in place between mentorship, guidance, access to capital, connections and things, and to take the, I don't know if you've heard the term BHAG, big, hairy, audacious goal, right? If I could wave a wand and really do something, it would be to really kind of affect the statistics for startup success in our area. I think we've got an amazing area. It's been proven out, and put these resources in place, we can start to change that. We talk about startups, and I think there's companies that are companies that kind of, we still call them startups. And I think the difference is that last piece is that you establish that you've fixed things. You've found out what you need to start advancing. So you start as a startup where it's an experiment, but when you get your business model solid, you know where you're making your money, you know how that your market is pulling you into it, and you have a repeatable sales model, you start to transition into the execution phase, right? And that's when you become a company. You don't become a startup anymore. We like to use the word startup, but I think it's interesting to just look at a larger perspective. If you're an early stage startup that is looking at funding, is looking at building something exceptional, to really kind of know the landscape that you're working in. This is the other one. We've all been there. I say the valley of death on the other one. They call this the dark swamp of despair. That you start something and it's really, really hard. You get in, and what seems really easy on the forefront starts to take you down into, oh, wait a minute, this needs to get done, this needs to get done, this needs to get done. And I think if you've started something, you're on this journey. It's an emotional journey, as much as anything. And I think the important thing to know is it's supposed to be hard. It's kind of what makes you better, right? It's what makes you better. It's what makes your product better. It's what makes your business better. What makes it more, the rest of the world accepts it, understands it, and so you actually become a lot stronger because of this process. So if you're in the middle of this, come out to more meetups. Meet other people that are going through it. This is why, it's part of why it's here. Anybody knows me knows I'm a little bit of a smartass. It's a little bit of a glib. So I say it is one of the hardest things you'll ever do. Some days are absolutely going to suck. Don't complain about it. It's part of the process. We all do it. We want to lean on each other for solutions, but the commiseration. But I think the other piece is don't lie about it. Be really honest about the process, and nobody can help you. It's like you don't lie to the doctor. Right? You don't lie to the doctor because he can't see the whole picture. And there are some amazing advisors, investors, and people in this community that when you're networking the right way, they'll be very likely to lean out and help. And so, be really honest about the journey you're going through and where you are. Some really quick stats about North Bank. This is the 8th year. Did I do the math right? 2017? Yeah, 8th year that we've been doing it. Helped about 120 businesses. This is through advisory. This is through actual, making connections. The amount of capital that's been raised because of the connections and people that we've advised is about 135 million. The revenue out of those companies is over 190 million. New jobs. These are classic economic development statistics that you'll see often. So part of what we do is an economic development aspect. You'll see, we're talking to people about what the region is doing and how we can help improve that. So new businesses, events, and over 3,000 attendees that have come through this. So it's been working. We know there's something here. It's exciting. I always like to talk about the region. Southwest Washington has been a hotbed for a long time. It's ebbed and flowed, but it kind of sits in the shadow of Portland as a sister city. And that's certainly changing over the last few years. Things like the waterfront, they're a piece of it, but if you look at the energy that's been happening, it's been recognized since 2017 as an economic destination, certainly because of the tax structure, which is more amenable, absolutely, to startups. But there have been some exceptional companies that have come out of it, that are housed up here. Talked a little bit about the tax structure. I'm not going to go too much into it, but if you're up here, you know there are some definite advantages. We're a little bit more business friendly. The tax situation in Oregon for small businesses is a little bit tough right now. But Oregon does have one thing going for them. I just kills me every time. Just went down to Proud Mary Cafe on Alberta, and it was just amazing, exceptional. And I think, we get to drive down there, but there's not enough of it up here. The waterfront is a good start. We got a long way to go.